Dear members of the state legislature and other elected officials, my name is Charles Marcella and I'm a director of the West End Lakeshore Civic Park Association. I'm here to address HB 654, which is currently on the agenda in 2024, the legislature. I'm asking you to vote against it. I'm asking you to look at the consequences of it, the negative consequences, and consider better options we have, what we call the smarter conversation. Currently, we have a park that's been in the books for over 100 years in West End. It's called West End Lakeshore Park. It was created by Acts 209 and Act 9 back to 1906. These two acts specified that this would be a public park or an amusement park. And later they defined the area and named it West End Lakeshore Park. Many maps show this clearly. It's West End Lakeshore Park. However, HB 654 seeks to amend those acts and allow for commercial development. This has never happened. We are hearing that there was commercial activity there. No, the activity was in Jefferson Parish. And what we see historically was a parking area that was originally put in there for the grand terrace of the park in 1914. That area evolved into a rose garden. 5,600 rose bushes were planted during the Great Depression as part of a WPA project, which also included a lagoon and a bridge on the other side of the park. And we have a 1915 Darlington Historic Fountain in the park as well. This makes the park qualified for the National Historic Register. Later, during World War II, those rose bushes were taken out. There wasn't enough labor, there wasn't enough resources to care for them. And it became a yard, a lawn. And that existed up until about the 1970s, when the city of New Orleans decided to asphalt that and add more parking places to serve the restaurants in Jefferson Parish that were outside the park. But it was still a parking lot in the park. We recently heard at the legislative hearing Representative Hilferty say that this parking lot was part of that commercial development. No, it wasn't. Okay, simply point, we have a park that has been open space for over 100 years, and we need to keep it that way.
Members, House Bill 654 by Representative Hilferty provides relative to the authorized uses and lease of certain public property in Orleans and Jefferson Parish.
Thank you, Ms. Stalder. Representative Hilferty, on your bill.
Thank you, members. Thank you, committee. This is a bill I've actually worked on for several years. What it's dealing with, and I believe you have a map in your folder, hopefully. Okay, so it is a small portion of land that is on the westernmost border of what is West End Park. It's outlined in red on this piece of paper here. A lot of what you see in the language, especially on page 2 of the bill, is describing that land in detail. We wanted to be very specific about the borders of this property. What it was is former state water bottom that was filled in by Orleans Parish around the turn of the century. Some of the land that they filled in actually extended over into Jefferson Parish. So we have state water bottoms that are now filled with land, both straddling Orleans and Jefferson Parish. So when you look here, just to give you a point of perspective, this is Lake Pontchartrain here, kind of coming around here. This is Orleans Parish, and this is Jefferson Parish. What we're seeking to do is to allow Orleans and Jefferson Parish to enter into a cooperative endeavor agreement to redevelop this property. What has historically been here, and this goes back from the late 1800s, early 1900s through 2005 when Hurricane Katrina hit, was typically seafood-related restaurants that were out on the water. Because you now have a permanent canal pump station right here, which is those green roofs that you see, those restaurants will no longer extend into the water. They will have to be on the land. And so we're looking to allow restaurants to come back to put out a request for proposals to see the market and what the interest level is in this piece of property that has historically been used for restaurant uses. There is a restriction that you will see in here against any residential use. That came from discussions with the adjacent boathouse owners, and in meeting with them, many of them expressed that they did not want to, sorry, I'm turning it the wrong way, expressed that they did not want to see residential there, and so hearing those wishes, we have said that there will not be any residential here, even though that is a permitted use in the zoning of Orleans Parish where this property lies. I'll take any questions. And I do, before I finish, I want to thank Ms. Stalder. She has really dug into this and helped me with this issue. So I just want to thank you. Have excellent staff on the committee.
Thank you for that. Ms. Stalder is amazing. We do have a card. There are no questions at this point. We do have a card in support. Trey Caruso, City of New Orleans, present but not wishing to speak. And we do have a card in opposition, but we have a question from Representative Zarang first.
Just one question. If there's going to be seafood restaurants in here, will they require testing of the seafood? No,
I
just wanted to remove favorable, Mr. Chairman, at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Mr. Zarang, for making the committee more fun than it normally is. We do have a card in opposition. Charles Marsala.
At the recent Natural Resources Committee meeting, I was surprised that no one asked any questions about the bill and the impacts. It was just pushed through with a favorable really quick. There are numerous issues that should be addressed. And we've actually prepared a pamphlet that you can open up and we mailed to you, showing some of the things that should be asked of anybody before you vote for this. It does include the maps showing that it's West End Park, and it lists the 2 acts that it will be amending, and it lists several questions in here. Among those is the loss of grants. By having Waterfront Park, we're able to get federal grants. One example is the Infrastructure Act of 2021. Senator Cassidy had held workshops on this. These workshops showed people that there were $50 million available for parks on the waterfront of Lake Pontchartrain. But yet we have yet to apply for any of these. In fact, Representative Hilferty was pictured with Jefferson Parish, which obtained over $15 million to do Bucktown Harbor, non-commercial. We could do that here, and that's what the residents here want. That's actually what the residents of Jefferson Parish want, and of Lakeview and other parts of Orleans. Because a recent study by the City of New Orleans released that we need more parks. We need more recreation because we're getting more obese. We need places for mental health. So why would we take out a prime park that's already in existence with funding that could be multiplied up to 4 to 1 with matching grants from the feds and the state? We need to keep this park. We have presented ideas which we think are the smarter conversation. We want a bike path in it. We lost recreation when Retief Park was taken to put in the pumping station. So how about bocce courts or pickleball in the area? We also need bike paths to get here. You can see that families struggle trying to get into the park because there's a limited sidewalk, or almost none at some points. So families take their kids through back ways to get into the park. Bike path grants are very much available right now at the federal level to help bring people into the park. This bike path would connect to Jefferson Parish and go all the way out to the point. And one of the big things we have here is a Pelican Pod. The Pelican Pod is seasonal. It's roughly from July to January. But as we've lost 21 out of 30 pelican colonies in the state of Louisiana, why would we pass up the opportunity to develop a pelican colony here where we already have a pod? That habitat is also a bird sanctuary for eagles, hawks, and many other birds. We have 29 heritage oaks in this land. And the studies done by the Regional Planning Commission indicate that more than half of those trees would have to be removed to do this development that Rep. Hilferty and the City of New Orleans are proposing. Before we remove those trees in the wildlife habitat of the pelicans, let's look to see if there's any other alternatives. Right across the street is a blighted area of commercial use. Easily could be done is that area could be developed for the commercial use she proposes, and we could keep the park as a park. Also, by making the park with a 99-year lease, that land to commercial development, and leaving the land across the street at 50 years, it's liable to remain blighted for many years. We've also seen, which makes us nervous out here, that many other projects in New Orleans have failed. The Lazy Jack on the lake out by the airport is another great example of a place that's vacant right now. So why would we create more bars when we know we're already struggling to keep the ones we have open? And where's the workforce going to come from? Her bill eliminates housing. And right now, the City of New Orleans has a housing policy that when you build a new development, you should include housing for the workers. So it seems like we're already putting in place a system to make this fail. Plus, the parking requirement. To do this, the Regional Planning Commission suggested reducing the parking requirement by 70%. You might reduce the number and then you can justify the building, but the end result is people won't have a place to park. So if they can't park, they're not going to come to those restaurants. We need to leave the parking requirement as where it was for Jefferson Parish and not reduce it to an absurdly low number. One of the items that led to the success of this area decades ago was a pedestrian bridge and also a vehicle traffic bridge. Those bridges are gone. However, a few years back, Judge Russo was on the radio on WWL saying the bridges had been rebuilt. They can't be. The Army Corps of Engineers pumping station's in the way. So that access was another way that made the restaurants viable. With limited access, we're going to have a problem with the success of these restaurants. It doesn't make sense. We did a survey of over 231 residents, a detailed 55-question survey. 94% want the trees saved. 80% would say let's use the land for recreation. But an important part here is many want trees planted in the area and not have the recreation and bring it back to a yard where it originally was. So the idea of saying to the public that this was historically a restaurant deal, as Rep. Hilferty did when she presented it to the Natural Resources Committee, is wrong. We have a rosebush area, we have a lawn, and then we have a parking lot. But this area has not been historically a restaurant area. Besides surveying locals and the residents, these ideas have been presented to Parks for All, the Audubon Society, and Open Space Alliances. All of them support keeping this as open space. The money is there. If we apply for the grants, we can do exactly what Jefferson Parish did. It's the smarter idea. We ask for your support, and please vote against HB 654. If you'd like to know more, we have a website, retiefpark.org, and also on our YouTube channel, we have more than 50 videos of showing people talking at meetings, the news media reports, and other items that will show that the smart decision is to support our wildlife and our recreation. Thank you.